So I am almost too excited to do this video today. In comparison to last week, like I didn't want to do it at all. So this week I am so much more feeling it. And I think a lot of the reason that really has a lot to do with the week that I experienced. And I'm actually seeing my yoga mat in front of me right now and thinking about what kind of a headspace I was in when I did the video last week. And I recognize how important it is for me to sit down when I really feel like I'm in the flow, in a reflective flow. Um, because after re-watching the video from last week, I was like, I don't want to only capture, I need to capture those moments, that's for sure, for myself in the future. But I don't want to only capture those moments. I really need to get these eureka moments, and I've had a lot of them the last week. And right now I'm feeling like in such a good flow because I did my pages and I finished chapter 5. And there were a couple of tasks this week that really made me think about some important topics in my life, and some activities that feel like they've been unblocking some stuff inside of me. And as I was reading, I'm not reading the pages, really just skimming, but even while I'm writing that, I'm like looking back for a moment on what I've just written, and even sometimes pausing for a second, but mostly it's just stream of consciousness, just keep it going. And I've noticed that my writing, one big thing, my writing is somehow either getting back to the level at which it once was when I was consistently journaling, putting out, even when I was practicing journalism and putting out articles, writing academic papers, but more specifically to the time where I was keeping a journal daily. I, for years, I would not go to a restaurant, a cafe, a bar. I wouldn't go on a train ride without a notebook. And lately, I think I know in the last couple of years, I have not had a journal with me as consistently as I did before. I need some chapstick. I was just sitting out in the, I was just sitting out in the, uh, sitting in the sun. I'm so blessed and thankful to, okay, slow down. So my lips were a little chapped. So my hands are dry. It's a black people problem. But I don't think it's a black people problem. I think it's an all people problem. And you know what I'm saying? Because we keep it hydrated over here. So, I don't have any lotion near me, but we're just going to go like this. Oh, we're just going to go like this. So, oh, I got myself off track. Okay, so I wanted to express gratitude as well, right? So my creative writing is flowing. What I notice is that I really need, I need, I have so much to say. I'll just ramble it out. Okay, free flow, don't stop. I need a designated poetry journal. I really want to get myself back into freestyling and rapping, because I can rap and I can write rhymes and write raps and write poems and freestyle, but all of that stuff requires consistent practice and constantly flexing that muscle. So if I were to go to a freestyle, to a cipher tonight, I would be a bit frozen. And I think about times where I've really gotten into the cipher, and those are moments that you just had to be there. There's nothing that was recorded. Maybe shout out to Igor and Sakile, like back in the day when I first moved to Leipzig, when I was really, really, really in the jam scene, those first couple of years, we had a lot of intense, long, late night jams. And I know there's a lot of great stuff that came out of those ciphers. And at the time when I had a project where I originally wrote Black Hearts, what came to be Black Hearts, my second single, the lyrics for that song were written almost 7 years ago. And they were originally written to a different track, a different beat. But the that project didn't work out, and so the original song was scrapped. It does exist somewhere, but you'll never hear it. And I'm glad that it's taken on this new form, but already in my mind, right? So I wanna nourish my freestyle flow and poetic pulse. Um, 2. The third thing is I'm also already thinking about an acoustic version of Black Hearts. I was sitting in the train. Ooh, I think y'all heard that burp. I was sitting in the train yesterday on the way back from the studio. I have so many open tabs. Like, I swear I might have the ADHD, y'all. I might have it, okay? But I think it's just like having a creative brain and thinking a lot of things at once. So, um, coming back from the studio yesterday, I started hearing notes in my head, in my mind, after the session. And I started hearing the acoustic version of Black Hearts in my mind. And Friday night, I gotta slow myself down. No, I don't, but I do got some boogers. I'm just okay. Friday night, I went to see the Michael Jackson movie. The same way that when I went to see that movie about Freddie Mercury, I forget how they titled it. The same way that anytime I'm watching like a music movie or a documentary about a big performer, about like one of the goats, like I feel like it gives me a little insight into what their creative processes were like when they were creating their best pieces of work. And I had this eureka moment on Saturday. Like, I was thinking about the Michael Jackson movie I saw on Friday night, and this scene where he's in the pool and he's like, and his brothers are like, Michael, what are you doing? And he's in the pool and he's like, I'm just being receptive for when the creator plants something in my mind, like plants a song in my mind so that he doesn't give it to Prince or something like that. And I had this moment on Saturday where it was like just being receptive, had a clear channel, clear way, a lot of trust and a lot of faith in the moment. And then this song was coming to me. And the crazy thing is that while I was working with the choir, Chorale, in February, May, preparing them for a concert, um, while I was working with that choir, I had so many self doubts about my own understanding of musical theory. A lot of that has to do with me being an autodidactic musician, as an orchestral child, growing out of that environment and shifting into like being an autodidactic guitar player, songwriter, and then becoming like a pretty, like, just getting really into the self-learning, and my structure was all out of whack, and it took me many years to come back to a sense of like, okay, I understand what I'm actually playing. And the growth I've experienced in specifically the last 3 years with the guitar, like, I was doing riffs on Saturday over my own instrumental, like the bass of the guitar, the basis, basic melody of the guitar. And I was like doing some riffs, and then I was so close to my guitar, like I was kissing her. And I didn't even know, I don't know where it was coming from. Oh, I got to come back to what I was saying about Saturday, right? I don't know where it was coming from, like really just flowing through me. And then, there were moments where I was like recognizing with my finger placement, because I always struggled to figure out how to just improvise riffs on top of a melody. And it was just coming to me, and I was recognizing the intervals. I was recognizing, because like I could hear for so many years like what sounds consonant, what sounds dissonant, what sounds like it works well, but I couldn't really put a name on things. I didn't really understand how to implement that knowledge or that feeling. It wasn't knowledge, it was a feeling for what works and what harmonizes. And this was maybe the first time that I was playing the guitar, and intentionally, but also like so deep in the groove. Um, so deep in the groove that I wasn't thinking about it. Like, my fingers were being placed, and then there wasn't hesitation, but sometimes I would hover over a certain fret, and then like my finger would just naturally say like, no, no, this is the right interval. And then, and I'm so excited. So this was a really sacred moment on Saturday in the studio for reaching toward the light. I'm so excited. Like, this is also going to be, I hear already an instrumental version of this song as well as the studio version with vocals. Okay, so I was on my way, waiting for the bus to go home after the studio. And then it was like the creator was planting the acoustic version of Black Hearts in me. And then I started hearing these intervals, and it was like, I don't want to say exactly how they were, but in my mind, I was like, do, 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 do. And in my mind, it was like 1 5 1 4 1 5 1 4. And then I was going through and I was like, do, 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 and doing like different intervals in my mind. And I was like, oh. And then I pull out my app, because in my mind I was like, oh, I know how much space is between these notes, and now I got to figure out which notes they would be. And so I have this tuner app, and then I was like playing, because I couldn't play my guitar at the bus stop, but I was playing the notes in my ear, and then I heard like how things were coming together, and I could figure out which key it was in, and like it all just made so much more sense. So these felt like eureka moments, like really big. It seems subtle, but it's like a really big thing, because I have been sitting for years. Like I got notes over here. I got my circle of fifths over here. Like I got all my tools. I got my books. I got everything here. I got my notes from music theory videos, and and I won't say it wasn't sticking, but a lot of what like the thing that really made the difference for me was like just really being receptive and allowing all of this wisdom and feeling to combine in a real moment of playing and a real moment of receiving. So that felt like a big thing for me. Sometimes I feel intimidated when I'm like, I love jazz music, but I'm going to tell you, like, contemporary white jazz, contemporary interpretations of jazz, for me, like those kind of jam spaces feel very hostile as a vocalist. And I don't know how much of it has to do with being a Black woman. I'm never really sure. But especially being a vocalist who's not a jazz singer in those spaces, it is a very, like, it's hostile territory, because there are a lot of people who like over rationalize jazz in the contemporary jazz spaces, and they're like, okay, the minor fourth, and then the fifth, and then the seventh, and then you're going to play a B minor seventh, and it becomes for me like so elitist and so detached from the actual roots of jazz music. And then there are a bunch of like, I love my white people, but I also, like, there are a bunch of like elitist, like white jazz college students who are like, or classically trained, in jazz music. And it's like, so. And I'm firing shots. I also know some really wonderful jazz musicians and some really cool folks, who also like come from more of a theoretical academic background, and it's okay. But the thing that I have felt for such a long time as an artist and as a musician who has this classical, so-called, also Eurocentric background, as a child who grew into like a very much like feeling based, um, like holistic connection to music, like full bodied connection to music, where it's not just about the numbers and the math and the language, but about like the complete embodiment of it and the resonance on an emotional level. Um, I often feel like in these kind of spaces or in conversations with folks who come from the other side of the coin, like I feel like such hostility. And it's not a personal thing. It's like it generally has a lot to do with this elitism that has been, like how the arts have been co-opted by like rich white people, and how it's often about like, we've taken this and now it's like a picture of a white frame, like you got a white frame on the wall and it's like a piece of graph paper, and there's one dot here, and that picture is going to be sold for like €1 million, $1 million. So um yeah, not my thing, but everybody has their own taste. Okay, but the point was about like co-opting art and being inspired by like things that come from like real cultural traditions, and often from like working class or people who are facing suppression, and then that becomes like co-opted in something that's elitist, which is exactly what's happened with jazz. Okay, little rant there. Whew. I always want to make sure it's recording because I definitely cleared out my space. Yeah, good. So it did happen. Okay, so that was a big thing that happened Saturday. I was so exhausted because I didn't sleep because I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning to go. I don't think this will. I hope this. I volunteered to help someone I met spontaneously on Thursday. So this is kind of moving back. Okay, today's Sunday. Um, Friday night was Michael Jackson movie, and um, Thursday I spent the afternoon. I got up, I went and got plants, and this was my artist date this week was to work on my balcony garden, and I gotta talk about that too. Um, I got the burps today. Okay, my strawberry nano smoothie. Well, I feel like I'm slowing down now. Thursday, I picked up some plants. I made 2 rounds going back and forth to the flower shop. They also have like little baby plants there. So I picked up a bunch of stuff. I don't want to show my balcony because I do not want everybody knowing where I live. Um, Unless I do some zoom ins. But anyway, actually, I took a picture that I took a picture from my balcony and then I put it into Google Images because then I was like, "Ooh, I don't want everybody to know where I live." So, and then I found like my place just by putting this picture from like a certain angle of a certain building. And I was like, "Ooh, so okay, nobody sees my balcony, but there are a bunch of plants out there and it's beautiful. Maybe I'll do a close up someday." But okay, the point is, I got all these plants and I came back. All right, this is going to relate to what happened on Wednesday. Got these plants, came back. I was working, blood, sweat, and tears on the balcony. I was moving all these plants. All my babies are getting a new house. Um, I got all my herbs. I got some new flowers for my Blumenkästchen, and I got all of my. I reset some things. So the front, the other side of my flat, I gotta do those. Um, I forget what they're called. Blumenkästchen. Flower, flower. They're not flower boxes. Boxes. Anyway, I have like a couple of like plastic hochbeete. I know English is my mother language, but I forget some of the words because German is such a precise language. There's a word for everything. So I planned to spend the day in the garden planting, and then Thursday night I went to a show. Shout out to Planta Santa. And I recognize though that like I already have had since a long time like a sensitivity to being in smoky places, and it's the one thing about Germany that I really, well, it's not the one thing, but it is one thing about Germany that, or at least this region of the world, it's not just Germany, but I don't understand why smoking is still allowed in indoor spaces. And I probably sound very German by saying this, but honestly, smoking indoors should be illegal here. Like, y'all behind, because I remember in 2005, like, I think it was 2005, that was the year where you could no longer smoke inside in Ohio. If it was earlier, then I might be wrong, but I remember around 2005, all of a sudden, like I was 10, all of a sudden, like you couldn't, we would go to restaurants and then there was no smoking all of a sudden. And so thank God, because it's a horrible thing. And for me, it's not just about like the overall sensitivity to like smells and lights and sounds, but that smoking is honestly like, especially as someone who is like, has smoked for half of my life, who is like, in the last 4 or 5 years has like I stopped smoking cigarettes once in a while. I do smoke one of them, but that's another story. Um, so we were literally inside of this concert for a couple of minutes, and like all it takes, you what? It's so really crazy. No smoking upstairs when you get into the concert space, but you have to go through the smoking lounge to get upstairs. Um, So walk in, walk in. I forget my pronouns here. I walk in, and we walk in. I was with a friend, and so we walk in, and immediately it's just like a puff of smoke. Puff of smoke. Everybody got their cigarettes. There's this kind of grungy, dark music playing on the speakers, like this really like such a typical like depressed, like depressing, smoky bar. Like everybody's there on a Thursday, like so. Yeah, so walking through the smoky bar, get upstairs. There no smoking in the concert. But then it only took like one or two people to light up a cigarette. Totally, like, keiner stellt sich die Frage. Nobody even asks. Like, people who look around, it's crazy because I was one of them. Look around the room, nobody's smoking. And then all of a sudden, like, how do you come up with the idea of like, let me just roll a cigarette here? No ashtrays. The windows are taped shut. You can't even open them. No ashtrays, no signs of smoking. And then you just start smoking. So then it's like, I left the concert early because one smokes, and all of a sudden I was standing there dancing. And then my friend was like, you smell that? Or I was like, I smell like smoking. Or my friend was like, there's not supposed to be smoking here, but I still smell smoke. And then we turn around and there's two people with their cigarettes. And I was like, y'all, like there's no smoking up here. And they were like, oh, sorry. They put the cigarettes out. But then it's too late. It's too late because then I gotta wash my clothes, I gotta wash my hair. Like it was really, and I left the concert before it was over because it's honestly unbearable. Why am I telling this story? I don't remember. I really don't remember. But the night before, so Thursday was garden day. The night before, I was gonna go get my plants on Wednesday. It was sunny. We had a couple of like sad rainy days, and then it was sunny again. And I was gonna go get my plants already. And on the way to get my plants, I passed the tram stop. I was like, should I take the tram just one stop? And then it felt like, inside of me, it was like, no, just walk across the street, grab an ice cream. I don't know if that was the Holy Spirit or my own desire, but honestly, cross the street, grab an ice cream, walk in the sun, and enjoy um, uh, a slow stroll to the plant shop. I had an hour before my webinar, which I'll talk about. Um, and then I go across the street, I go into the ice cream shop, and as soon as I walk in, open the door, the woman selling ice cream has a man in front of her on the other side, customer, and they both turn to me, and the woman says, are you looking for a volunteering opportunity? Because I'm not. Yeah, okay. Actually, yeah. I don't need to tell it all, but here's the thing. She was like, "Are you looking for a little job?" And I was like, "Depends, maybe," because I learned from my career coaching a couple weeks ago, like just say maybe at first. And then she says, "Oh, this guy, he's looking for someone to help with his market stand, selling coffee to the people, selling things at the market. Insert it has something to do with music here for um, official insurance purposes." And it was a gig, it was a concert, I swear. And so then I was like, okay, talk to the guy. And we talked for a minute. He told me about the idea. I was like, yeah, I'm looking for somebody for this Saturday. Once in a while, once, twice every month, there's this market. And it was so funny because like everything felt like I had a clear go the whole time in my heart. It was like really like the Holy Spirit was just like, yeah, just say yes, go for it, everything's safe, talk with the man. I don't want to tell too much about this man's story because it's not my business to tell, but I do believe that he believes it was just chance, but I really believe like it was like God putting us together, and like it's a really beautiful, much older man. I'm really actively looking for mentors and people who have more experience in life. I'm missing a lot of like the older generation of folks who like really are open for like real mentorships. And so long story short, I was awake like all night on Friday. I got up super early to go to this market. That's why I didn't sleep, and that's why I was tired. That's why I didn't go. Okay, I don't have to explain all myself, everything, all myself. Okay, so spontaneity. I followed an impulse that was like, don't take the train, go across the street, stop for an ice cream, take a walk. And this really felt like just divine instruction coming in the moment. It was so clear. And then I recognized from that moment, big lesson, it was just such a good, clear example of what it feels like when I'm receiving instruction and just following it without resisting it. It doesn't matter what the example was, but then that led to the thing that matters is that I could experience what that feels like to receive clear instruction, ask a question, receive clear instruction, and just follow. Like, I didn't think, I didn't resist, I just followed it. And then it led to like a little side hustle that covered my plans. So that was a big thing that happened Wednesday. And then let me see how long this is so far, but I got a lot to say today. Okay, we're at 26 minutes, but I already told myself, I made the deal. I'll do these videos as long as I need to do them. And I have time. It's Sunday. Everything's good. Service is later. So maybe the last thing about my week I want to share. On Wednesday, I have been participating in these GEMA. So GEMA is the performance rights organization in Germany, like ASCAP or BMI in the States. And GEMA offers workshops, webinars, and workshops for members. And because I'm a member, I signed up for a bunch of workshops. So almost every Tuesday or Wednesday, I have a webinar. One was for funding. I need to talk about that topic too, because last week I was laying on the floor. I was like, how am I going to get all this funding? Long story short, there are enough grants and there's a lot of funding. And I decided, I'll come back to the webinar. I decided to sit out of this cycle because I do need to grow more in my career before I'm eligible for that specific funding. But that's okay because it just means that's not the one for me right now. But I'll come back to it. And they're offering this every four times every year, every season. And there are other funding opportunities. And the second thing, and that's it. The second thing is partnerships, doing projects with other people. I was thinking the whole time I need to do this stuff by myself alone, but I don't. And I don't. It's better to do things with other folks. And I kind of forgot that that was my intention in the first place, to do like community based, just like I did years ago for kids, for years. Community based cultural and creative projects. So that was enough for funding. So last week I was laying there, I was like, oh my god, I'm not eligible. But then I have a whole list. Like I do my research, and there are a lot of resources available. And coming back to the GEMA webinar, I will. One of the most important things about this week was depend on God, not on humans, and that God meets our needs through people, places, and things. My job is to learn to accept the generosity of Him, as well as the fact that scarcity mindset is sabotage. So, what does it mean, depend on God and not on humans? I don't have to worry about a jury approving my funding application. Like, God has access. And through my creator, I have constant access to all of the resources in the world. As long as I put my faith and trust in God and not in, okay, there's this organization and they have this amount of money, and there are a certain amount of people who are going to be reading and judging the application. Like, don't depend on those people, because even if I have a great concept, maybe they won't choose it. And that happens. The last application I had, nothing about, I love this organization, nothing about them. It's not about them, or they're not, I mean, they're not bad people or something, but there's only so much to go around when we only depend on like human resources. And so chances are, like, my thing might not get picked, I might not be chosen by other people. but God is choosing and loving me, and He wants to provide and is constantly providing. So honestly, I have nothing to worry about. So this is something I have to tell my future self when I'm laying down on the yoga mat, like, oh, nobody wants my concepts. Like, God has all of the houses, the money, the resources, the people, the jobs, the opportunities, like everything is available. So I just have to trust and listen. And when this little whisper is coming, it's like, go across the street, go get the ice cream. Don't take the tram. Don't pass by the ice cream shop. Like, just go do what I say. So, okay, enough about funding. Game of Webinar was about unlocking the artist within. No, that's what my workshop is about in a couple of weeks. This workshop was about my unique performance style with Marvin A. Smith. Oh my God, did I say Marvin? Yeah, that's his name, Marvin A. Smith. I would love to meet this person. I would love to meet this man. Maybe he's going to be at the GEMA conference in a couple of weeks in Berlin. Who knows? But this is probably, I feel like in retrospect, attending this webinar is going to be, I'm speaking to myself in a couple of years now. I feel like this webinar was the moment that shifted my future path. The knowledge, the tools that I gained in this webinar, the questions I took with me. I'm not going to talk about what the whole, like everything that happened, but these are my notes. Oh, I'm gonna slip there. These are my notes. This is the college student in me. I took 4 pages of notes, color coded. And I'm not going to talk about the content, like what the workshop was about really, except for the topic of unique selling point. And I'm not going to summarize. I'm just going to say that through this workshop, I came down to the 3 pillars, what my unique selling point is as a performer, as an artist. And I got these 3 words. I had a hard time. I literally have like 30 words written on this page. I kept combining different things. And then through the process of raw, like total honesty with myself, sitting down and being like super real about who I actually am, I came up with these 3 words that describe my unique selling point. And they are soothing, grounded, and captivating. Soothing, grounded, and captivating. This is my starting point. And I didn't invent these things, I deduced them. I wrote out specifically what these words actually mean for me. I started with things like raw, warm, truth teller, healer, but those were for me too abstract, and I needed to be completely honest about where I am now. Not who I was, not where I want to be, but when I look at my performances on stage. Oh, there's one other thing about the week I have to talk about because I did have a performance. When I rewatch my own video, like performances, and when I think about how I feel on stage, when I listen to my songs, these are the 3 words that I would use to describe. Like if I could only use 3. And that in itself, like, do you guys know, since October, it has been 6 months, at least 6 months, but maybe even years, I have been trying to figure out like what is my unique selling point? What are the things that actually make me who I am? It's not that I'm a gospel folk singer. That's not the thing that is unique about me. It's not that I'm a poet and a storyteller. It's not that I'm a social critic. It's not any of those things. It's this. Damn. Okay. There's so much more that I want to share, but maybe that's going to be close to enough, and my voice is getting a little raw, and I'm hoping that we have enough space. We should. Okay, I took from that, and I'll talk about Tuesday. I took from that meeting a lot of really important questions that I am gonna take with me for the next week. Things I really need to think about. It's not just for the next week, but in the near future. I'm not gonna list these questions, but there are questions for the near future that I took from this workshop that I really need and want to sit down and have clear answers to these questions, because this is going to be the crux of who I am as an artist. Okay, who RevivaLiz is. Okay, so Tuesday I performed, and I think I'll close here. Tuesday I performed at 777. This was my third time performing. It's an artist series, an artist exhibition, and I have to admit, ooh, I don't need to limit myself. Okay, I have to admit that this was one of my best performances. I'm not talking about concerts, but in itself as a theatrical performance on the stage with a concept. Whereas when I'm really honest with myself, there's so much more digging to be done, because my appearance, the way I perform, it's very poetic, it's very clear, it's very focused, captivating, because I don't start with being loud. I start with being very, and you hear it, I hear it in the songs I'm producing now. The beginning of the song usually starts with either a psalm rewritten or a proverb rewritten in my own words, or some quote from the Bible, or some poetic introduction. And that's how this performance started. It started with the curtains opening, and I was standing there with my guitar. And I don't start like, hi everybody, but I start and I look with eye contact like this. In the beginning, and I'm speaking like really in this register, in the beginning. And when I rewatched this, and of course there was this really nice swell and rise and landing, and I was very proud of myself just with how I set up this performance. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, there's so much work to be done, but I have like a really good starting point already. And that was a moment where I recognized, like, I really am an artist, and I really am a performer, and I really can do this, and I should and want to believe in myself. And the only thing standing in my way is myself. Okay. So there was a little disbelief in what I just said. I think that's why there was some nervous laughter. The only thing standing in front of my way is myself. I think there are other things standing in my way, but when it really comes down to it, like it would be more honest to say one of the greatest obstacles to my own success is my own self-sabotage. That feels more real, actually. I think there's something deeper there, but I'll have to chew on that. Okay, the last thing, and then that's it, for real. The last point that I took from the last week is the topic or the truth that withdrawal is necessary. Not talking about like withdrawal from drugs, but withdrawal from people, places, habits, but more specifically talking about like withdrawing into silence and solitude. I have felt so guilty in the last year for taking so much time and space to be really by myself and on my healing journey, and often feel like, through that process, I mentioned a few weeks ago, my inner circle has become very small. I still have a lot of social contacts. I'm still in touch with a lot of people. Like, it's not an ego thing, but my phone is like, there is not a day I'm like always behind on messaging, but not just because of the volume, but because I often need time to just like chew on it, reflect, and withdraw. And I'm not always responding immediately, but I think that's not what it was about. It's about the fact that like I'm actively withdrawing from specific relationships right now. in places, but specifically relationships. And it's a really hard, um, it's a really hard point in the journey when it comes to this topic because I tend to over explain myself. Obviously, I tend to over explain myself, and it's really become challenging to figure out the balance between withdrawing and honoring the fact that I'm in the middle of creating an album. Calling it an EP just because it's not 45 minutes but 30, like it's, and because it's 7 songs and not 14, just because it's considered an EP doesn't undermine the fact that I'm crafting an album right now. That also took me a minute to recognize. Like, it's not just, oh, I'm working on my EP, but like I am crafting an album. And that's a creative process that requires concentration, requires reflection, and requires focus and consistency and commitment. And I'm really proud of myself for exhibiting those qualities. And it took me a couple weeks, like, or months to really get rolling, but now I'm really in flow. And what that requires, honestly, is withdrawing from specific harmful relationships. And that's hard, finding this balance between not over explaining myself, but also, yeah, living with the discomfort of hurting other people by withdrawing my attention. So that's where I am right now. I would say that that's one of the biggest challenges I'm facing. Because inviting creative blockers, inviting crazy makers, inviting shadow artists, inviting folks who are like other like soul suckers, like I really cannot have space for that right now. I don't know if it only means until this album is published or if it means for the rest of my life, but I owe it to myself. So that's enough for today. Week 5 looked very different compared to week 4, and I'm about to sit outside and read the chapter for week 6. One very last thing, I'm gonna flip the camera. One very last thing that I will show is what I did this week, and I set up my little prayer corner. This is my little prayer corner. I'm still getting all of my, oh, bala. I just made like some blank pages so that I can really reflect. Before I just had like a little couple of things, but this is my little prayer corner. So my door is closed. I just push out my little pillow and I feel like I'm just in this cute little, maybe I'll do like this for a minute. Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay, little demonstration. So my door is closed and I just pull out my little pillow and I can sit here and I can read the word and I can write my reflections here and just like really sit and pray, and the acoustics here are also different, and it feels like a little safer. So I've been wanting to shift this little corner of the room into a prayer corner for a while. So I'm very thankful that inspiration came this week. So it's time to say goodbye. Oh gosh, I hope you didn't see anything out the window. Oh, don't look. I don't want you to know where I live. Okay. So that's enough for today. It's week 6 and I'm feeling good. I'm feeling ready. Okay. Thank you, future me, for watching this, and anybody else who has been following along the journey. And toi toi toi. So goodbye. Goodbye. Goodbye.